Hey guys, how's it going? Ghostly Richard today, and today is an exciting day. We're here with Tariq. We have a motor, we have an engine stand. It's time. We're gonna assemble the 6.2 liter LT1 for the Corvette project. The first step we're gonna end up doing, I'm gonna quickly set up a table here and we're gonna go ahead and assemble these heads. I mean, it really consists of installing the valve springs and some titanium retainers. I'll give you some part numbers in a second as we go to assemble it. We got some assembly lube here. I would go ahead, open these up. You can shoot it on your finger just so that way we can lube up everything in here. Lube up your valve. Again, these valves, cool thing about them is I got them all machined out, so they've already got a little bit of assembly lube. I'm just doing this so I'm not metal on metal when I'm installing everything. Everything's gonna be nice and smooth. Another thing you're gonna use this on is your keepers. Because when we try to do the keeper retainers there, I know everyone gets angry when I say retainers. They say, no, they are not valve retainers, they are keepers. Anyways, now that I've done my little rant, go ahead, make sure those are all lubed up. Now that they are, we're gonna go ahead and take these little pieces here, slide them on, one on each. You should have enough, one for each. Don't double up. These are just little spacers or shims. After you go ahead and shim every last one of these. We just go ahead, do that. All right, count to make sure you still have 8 left. If you don't, it means you put an extra one on. Nope, we're good. Next thing, little guys right here. Slide them on. Again, you can't double these up, even if you wanted to. Won't let you. And they fit nice and snug. If they don't, then I don't know what to say. They should. And, all right. Next thing, go ahead and grab these little new seals that go on here. Slip them onto the tip and slide right down. They should slide right on, and that's why you're lubing these up, so that way they seal properly. Because if you don't slide them or lube them up, sliding them on can be a little bit fun. And right here. Make sure you push down on them. Don't just expect them to seat themselves. And that's why we're lubing them, so that way we know that it'll be good. There we go. That one went on, that one went on. Again, you have to press them down. There. I just realized that I wasn't sinking them all the way. And again, there. Make sure that they make the little farty noise. There they are. And they make that because of the assembly lube. Okay. And one more. There we go. Next thing to do, springs. Every single one of them. Just make sure the springs are sitting how they should. Just like so. And then last but not least, you can, if you have your bag full of retainers, this is a messy way of doing it, but it really does work. Just fill this full of a little bit of assembly lube. The reason why I say that is now you can mash it up a little bit, because you want these to be kind of sticky when we go to put them in, because if they're not, it makes it easier when you're installing them. You'll see. So, okay, these are gonna sit like so when we're done. They kind of gauge out like that. So just sit them like this, get them ready. And from here, we need a compressor. I'm gonna go get mine and I'll show you how to use the compressor. There's a few different ones. I'm gonna show you the one that I recommend and the one that I don't recommend. I've used it personally and it can totally ruin your project, hurt you and hurt the people around you. So I highly suggest that you do not use it, and I will show you which one it is. Do not, if you can avoid, use this. If you look at my disassembly video, you'll see me use this. If this thing slips, this pops. Trust me, do an extra $40 investment, pick yourself up this one. You can get it on Amazon and it comes really darn quick. Literally, I'm using a piece of plywood, as you can see. What you can do if you use this piece of plywood is you can just slip this underneath, slap it on here, and what we do is we tighten this from the bottom. It's gonna put pressure on that plywood and bring it up. To do this though, what we need is a towel. You slide the towel underneath your head, and what it does is it'll keep those valves completely compressed up and protect the valves. So like I said, just take a balled up towel, throw it underneath, and it'll press up on those valves. See this plate? I'm gonna hold this under here so it doesn't pop through the plywood. So this will slide over here. Pretty easy. What we're gonna do is take this, see how I've zeroed them both out? Slide it up and around. We're gonna go over here. We should have just enough just to fit right there. Next, we shouldn't even have to do anything on the top end. If you have a gap on the top, go ahead and zero it out before you even start anything. Make sure we sort of stay in the center. I'm just tightening this with my fingers for right now. What we want to make sure we do is come up through the center, because if you come up and you aren't through the center, you could bend your valve if it gets caught on the retainer, which would suck. So I'm going to go ahead, slide my little bar in here because we're starting to get some compression going on. Yeah, still watching it. Again, making sure we line that valve stem up and through the opening. There we go. Just tightening slowly here. Again, it's a long way to travel because these have a lot more spring to them, as one would say. Almost there. Again, the trick is to find the healthy balance, because if you over compress, it'll actually work against you when putting these keepers in. And maybe just a little bit more. There. All right, let's try this. So again, we got our glued up retainers right here. We go ahead, we kind of half slide them in. Just careful when you're putting your fingers in here, not to move anything around, because if this spring lets go, your fingers are gonna hurt. So what I like to do is just bring that down there, then you use a hook pick of your choice just to bring them up and into place. Now we'll bring in the camera in a second and show you what I'm talking about. Whoa. Make sure that's still there. Show you a close-up of what I was doing. I used the hook pick to get these both, and you have to play with them until they seat. They're gonna have a bit of a gap. That's the way these retainers work. But try and balance the gap if you can for when you're sliding it up. But see how I have it right here? If you cannot get it in the little lip, I'll show you that on the next one. I'll drop it and I'm gonna show you right from the start. I'm just not gonna make you watch me dropping the whole thing again. You wanna get it, there's a little rim on your valve, and there's two little rims on these valve retainers over there, which I'm gonna show you afterwards. But from this, you just slowly loosen it and watch the valves. They should slowly sit in that ring, and you should see it closing up around it. I'll teach you another thing with the next one, but again, I'm gonna let you guys watch that. Yeah, it's closing up, which is good. Time to pull the pressure off of the valve, and we should be good. And again, because of the angle of the head, as you can see, it can play a little bit of a match if you don't have this on an angle like that, which it won't want to because of how it screws in. Anyways, that's it. Third time here, just because I'm trying some different camera angles, But yeah, what we need to do is slide that over and try, if you can, to meet the angle of the valve. We're gonna start to tighten it. I'm tightening it on the bottom, so that way I can see right there. I wanna watch my valve stem come up and pop through. You do not want it to catch the edge of the spring retainer, because if you do, what'll end up happening is you have a chance at bending your valve. You do not want this. So make sure you're watching and making sure the center tip is coming through the center. Which it is. All right, after I get it enough, I'll show you the tip coming out. It's just the first part's a little hokey because the springs are so long, they try to bend in different directions. There we go. Tip is now through. And we're just gonna keep tightening a little bit until we can see the little ridge on the spring right there. So see how we can see, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but there's a little ridge on your, not on your spring, but on your valve. What we want to do is take two of these retainers, which also have little ridges and not dog hair, which I have all over my hands at a constant. And you just want to slide these in to there. Now, I'm gonna just kind of line these up, if I can, in here, the best I can. And then I use a hook pick to make sure they line up proper. Make sure that it's concave so it wedges when you bring the spring up. So all we do is that, and we can bend these around in a second. Goodbye. And then this just comes in right here. And this one just comes in right here. Come on. All right, there. This might need to come down just a little bit more so I can get it, okay? Compress. There. Okay, that one's in. Now we just got to get this one in, and yes, this is fun no matter what or how many times you do it. Okay. 1 second, magnet before we lose it. And before somebody says, why don't you just leave it on the magnet? Well, because then it'll pull it off when you pull it away. How about that? There, okay. That's now on the ridge. We line this one up on the ridge. I make sure this one's fully seated, perfect. Now that you can see that, see how it's fully seated? With these particular ones, see, now it's fully seated. I just wanted to press it on here to show you. They can be a little bit of fun. I even put an assembly lube on there to help them stick. From this point, we slowly loosen and we monitor. We want to make sure it stays in the retainer as we come up. As we can see, that one's coming up. We need to watch it. Oh, she's still, yes, she's still in the retainer. And it should come up nice and smooth. And there we go. Watch for my metal plate that I put down, and there you go. As you can see, they have just a tiny bit of a gap right here. Yes, it's a little fun. As you've seen, you're gonna balance it. You might sway your head off a little bit, but just do that. I'm not gonna make you suffer and watch through me doing both heads, but go ahead and do that to all of your heads. Now, I wouldn't be proper for me not to mention, you can buy a tool for LS motors and LT motors, which does 2 springs at once. It sits right here, you tie it down, and it compresses the spring. Rich, why don't you have that? Well, one, I use something that's more universal because I do more than one head. The second reason why I do it is because if something goes wrong, this is an aluminum head, and you strip out these every time you're doing the valves, you will cry. Professional machine shops, what they'll end up doing is they actually have a situation where they can compress 2 to 4 valves because this sits on a plate which holds the valves underneath, and they just compress it with an arm and they just slip in 4 sets of retainers and release slowly. So that's the difference between us do-yourselfers in a garage and a machine shop. Tell you the truth, if you don't want to mess around with this and you got a couple extra bucks, ask the machine shop. They can do it in about 10 minutes, all your valves, and it might cost you an extra 50 bucks or a pack of beer. When you're doing this, another good thing is if you put your hand right here, you can shift this around to get that perfectly centered. So put your hand on this and move that spring and retainer around so that way the keepers line up. Now, when you're reading the package, you're gonna see titanium retainers and you're gonna be like, oh man, but titanium isn't the most magnetic thing, don't get me wrong, it still has some bit, but why can you use it on the keepers so easily? And that is because the keepers themselves are not titanium. They are still metal, steel, whatever. But what is these retainers on top that actually hold the spring down. And that is because that is the part you don't want to fail. And of course, the spring bust, your valve smacks. And that is steel as I pull the last off the valve. This has got all your kits. Look at my dirty fingernail. This has all your kit specs on it. This is the kit that you need from Brian Tooley if you want the same valve spring kit that I did with the titanium retainers and the same beautifulness. So if you want that, that's the, again, right there. I'll quickly read it out, SK007C7 LT1. Make sure you clean all the old gasket off. If you have a scraper, you just come around here and just start cleaning and peeling just like that. And try to just get it on the angles that you can. And after you do that, you can always use a bit of sandpaper to get any other residue. Try your best not to slip and score the mating surfaces, because if you do, you will cry. It's that simple. And yeah, just come into here. I also got a new gasket for here. I'll give you that part number when we go to put it on. And also just make sure you have some RTV, because we're gonna have to use some RTV to go ahead and remate the surface to the block. I also bought a new rear main, which I'll show you that as well. But just wanted to show you how I'm getting the old gasket off. And it's always a good idea too, like I said, just to go over with a tiny bit of sandpaper. Very, very, I guess in this case, high grit. Because if you do 2,000th of a sandpaper, it's going to not be as abrasive as a lower grit sandpaper. Drywall sponge. See that? How it just shines it right up. And this end. Again, this is a brand new one that I bought just for gaskets. You shouldn't use one that you've used on drywall, because, well, that's not good. The smallest amount of foreign material you can bring into your motor is usually the best. This gasket that's in here, look right here, there's a little keyway. Slide a pick in and lift the gasket out. That'll completely open up this area for when we go to re-RTV this and put the new one in here. We're gonna pop this rear main out too. Probably not gonna be able to do that like this. No, I'll show you. We gotta put a piece in here and we're gonna pop out the rear main and we'll pop the new one in. Very slow RPM, wire wheel. Be very careful with this. You wanna monitor for bristles. Put on safety glasses if you so wish. But we're going at very low RPM. You need to be very careful so that way you don't get these bristles in here. If these get sucked up in your motor, you're in a whole lot of trouble. So just go ahead, grab this, and As you can see, it just makes quick work of everything. It's best to use a brand new wire wheel, by the way. And then after you've gone a once over, you'll see these little bits just right here. Just go in and make sure you clean it up so there's absolutely nothing right here. Yeah, that's all you're doing. Make sure you get as much form matter out as you can. If you're worried about the bits in here, which you will be, take some brake clean and shoot it all out. You can even pull your drain plugs out and just clean this entire surface and these entry ways here and exits right here, or entries and exits. These are for your oil pump. These are for your dry sump lines if you have dry sump. If you have wet sump, well, still clean it up. As you can see, Mr. Tariq is just shooting with a little bit of brake clean and just cleaning up any residue that we can. And the last thing we'll do is pop the drains and of course, just clean out that last little bit down there. Again, just make sure you are extra careful if you're using the wire wheel like I did. So I showed you both methods because, again, last thing you want to do is leave a bristle in there if one comes off. That's why it's always best, if you're going to be doing something like this, to always use fresh, brand new wire wheels. So that way you know that it's not been weathered and hit pretty hard. As you can see, we're getting pretty shiny. So do that to there and do that to the rear plate here. And then the next thing I'm gonna quickly do is try to pop this out. Couple 2x4s, let them support it like this. I was gonna try this a little bit and then show you, but it didn't let me. I used the biggest flat blade I had, and from this side, don't do it on the metal. Hit down on the edge of the rubber. And all you do is you give it a couple thwacks right there and a couple thwacks on the other side, and bam, she pops out. Again, not on the metal, just on the rubber. Now clean that surface so we can pop the new one in. GM Genuine part 890600436. It'll say this side out on the rim. Make sure that you do that. And like I said, it'll actually say it on here if you read it. And then just press it in. Try to be as even as possible. You literally, this one, you just have to press in. It's not hard at all. And then flip it over and slide in this tapered piece. You can see, because it's got the opening part, this rim sits on the back end. You might be wondering, well, what the heck is this plastic piece for? It's actually so you can push this on and the crank will slip over it. Now, if you want to, you can throw a tiny bit of assembly lube along the edge. You don't really need to, but you can. And then slide this in from the back side so you don't wreck your gasket. So let's show you. This is it, nice and clean. Ta-da-da-da-da. Slip it in just like so. And evenly. And this is, like I said, what's gonna happen after you put there. Perfect. After you pop that through, now when you slide this over the crank, it's going to seal on it. And it also guides it. It's a good way to make sure that it doesn't wreck your gasket. That's basically it. That'll pop up. The crank will actually pop that out when we press this onto the back of the motor. The next piece you need is GM126-7520. That is this piece right here. We're gonna go ahead, we'll pop that out, and all you're gonna do, if you want to, you can just, I wouldn't put any lube on this actually, I would just slip it in. And the reason why is because you don't want it to leak or anything, and you don't really have to worry, there's no sharp edges on here, it's not gonna get cut up. If you're worried about it, go ahead and lube it up a tiny bit if you'd like. Pretty easy with this one, just like that, all the way around. And you will be able to get it in just like so. Boom, brand new gasket installed. Just make sure it's fully seated. Now that we know that's ready to go, that's ready to be placed on. Next, look how shiny that is. It's like brand new. Now that we've cleaned that, we've got that last piece right there. We're just gonna shoot that with a little brake clean, make sure that one's spotless. Set your torque wrench to 90 clickies, aka 90 inch-pounds, and just go ahead and... Oh, apparently I still had some to go. There, okay. Now, keep in mind, it's a very low torque spec, so... There. There. And make sure you're on the handle. There. See? It's important to make sure you're on the handle, because if you're not on the handle when it comes to final torque, it won't click. There. Over here. This kind of stuff, because it's so low torque spec, I highly suggest you actually do this and use a inch-pound torque wrench, because if you try to do it by hand or with an impact, you're going to break bolts and then you're going to cry because you're going to need a new pan. Also, if yours isn't a clicky like this where you spin and lock, make sure you lock your torque in, because otherwise it'll change torque as you're spinning. There. Okay. The only time I ever do this when I'm using just the tip is when I'm coming down like that. There. Go once, that's it. All done. Remember to release your torque. And now let's get our RTV ready to attach both our parts. I'm also going to go grab the new gaskets for the pan. I'll give you that part number. I just don't have the part number for this one right here. These ones I'm going to be reusing because at the time they were back ordered. And so yeah, again, these are still pretty fresh. This engine only has about 30,000 kilometers on it, so I'm not too worried. If anything, I'm just going to use a little bit of RTV on these rings on both sides, and that's just going to give it a little bit more sealant anyway. And plus, I'm sure you've seen that when you pulled it off. It already had a little bit of RTV on these rings, so it just came off really easy. Right here, gasket number 12631278. Again, GM genuine. I got these all off Rock Auto, by the way. So all we do is we slowly compress this in, and the pump itself will compress into this when we put the oil pump on. This one is not going to go on until last. Was just cleaning this up at the same time as the rear main. The rear main we want to do first, because otherwise our cam can slide out the back end. And I know I have very disgusting dirty nails. Okay, so that is now set. We're going to put this off to the side in a clean area, and we are going to put the rear cover on, so that way we can get this bolted onto our stand. Sorry, battery died there. We stopped just so we could show you, but yes, continue. And although you see me putting tons, just keep in mind it is a machine surface. This is gonna squish down, so you can just keep going a little bit like this. And just like this, just making sure there's no big obvious holes. Hand cramps are a thing with this stuff. I think it just popped out the back because I'm squeezing so hard. That's okay.
was just trying to make sure.
You can smear it with your finger later.
Oh, that's right. You can't do that. All right.
Yeah, don't do too much.
Just... This is why I hate using Gasket Maker. If I could have, I would have bought pre-built gaskets, but they don't let you do so on the LT1 apparently. Mopar just wants you to use this. All right, just like that. Just look for any holes, clean your tip, and you should seal it right away. You can clean this out if you're worried or you need to reuse it, which we will when we do the oil pan. All right, as you can see, we smoothed it all out. And if you take a look here, we put a little bit on this dot, which goes on here. That's for your oil diverter. If you look at your factory videos from when you first did this or whatever, you had a little bit of goop here. It sticks to the plate, and what it allows is when you pop this plate off, it pulls that out for replacement. So that's why we threw a little bit on there. Next thing we got to do is basically try to line this up dead spec in that hole. If you look, it just sits right there. And then if we squeeze it ever so gently, it just should line in. And we just have to get our dowels in. Okay, that dowel's in, that dowel's in, and it just slides in just like so. Move that out of the way. And our dowels have lined it up. Go ahead and thread all these screws in. Get them all ready. What we want to do is just get these all started, and then we'll do a torque spec afterwards. Now, if you took a look too, we didn't do the bottom of this because we'll wipe this, and we will do that when we do the oil pan. And we will be adding a little bit extra on the seams to make sure it doesn't leak. Always a good thing to do. And don't worry, you have up to about an hour to get this stuff in there, as it says. Basically you want to cinch it down, but you don't want to go He-Man. You can give it about 15 minutes before tightening it up. It does claim an hour. If you want to wait an hour, that is completely up to you. That is what the manufacturer for RTV says you should do. I just quickly cinched these in with this new LT1. What's awesome, it's got some dowels, so it lines up already like perfect. Like if you take a look, it's perfectly symmetrical. Some of the other ones, it'll tell you to use a lineup tool and all this other stuff. You don't really need that with this one. It lines up because of the two dowel pins right here. So again, just come over here. We're gonna fire up our torque wrench. This one's a different one. I'm using a snap-on. So again, I'm gonna switch my units to foot-pounds. Now it's 18, or you can go to 20, whatever you wanna do. And let's quickly go ahead. We're gonna do inside out. So we're gonna do these, and then these, and then these, and yes, like I said, inside out. So we can start here, doesn't matter. I got Tariq holding the motor because it's hanging. There. Apparently there's a mosquito on my arm taking a ride.
Wee.
Nope. There. Okay. Oh. There. Come on. Oh. Come on. Almost there. I think I'm just going to go back to 8. See, that's saying 18. I think 18 is a good number. Just stick to 18. That one we've done. This one I'm going to do next.
Those torque wrenches.
Come on.
Not digital. Don't have that split.
No. Oh. It's saying 17 foot-pounds, but it's not letting me know. There. Now it's letting me know. And then what I'll probably do is just do the bottom 4 right here, and then we can do the top 4 right here last. There.
Already did that one. Oh. It's cool that this one actually tells me the last torque I did.
Yeah, holds it.
Yeah. So that way, if you've got a boss and you strip a bolt, you'll be like,
Nah.
he over torqued it.
Nope.
It's a meanie. There we go. I think that's it. Perfect. That's this. Let's go ahead and get our spider on here so we can slap it on our engine mount. Now that we've got that nice and clean. What I also would suggest, nice clean cloth, go ahead and wipe down here so that way we're gonna have a nice clean edge to put our oil pan on later. Probably not gonna be able to focus hocus pocus on this, so I'll read it to you. Part number that I'm using for the camshaft is 2242540166. And that is again from Brian Tooley here. I've got the old phaser bolt, even though we aren't using the phaser, we're getting rid of that. So what's gonna happen is I just grab the cam out of here. And this one actually looks lubed up already. It's actually in a bag of oil. Yeah, we'll still put some lube on it, but here, take a look. He also already lubed this. So I don't think we have to watch out.
More lube.
Oh yeah. Oh wow, this one's soaked in lube.
More lube.
Always more lube, eh? As you can see, she's beautiful. Now, trick for you when installing a cam. You just,
the back, yeah.
yeah, this right here, because it's got the bolt hole. You use this for a leverage point. You'll see why after. So just go ahead and throw the lube on here. A little bit on each sprocket, and we'll just go ahead.
We
Yeah, just
need
like
it
that.
here right now.
No,
Just
I'm gonna end up cutting my hands up. Beautifully machined. All right. And again, you're just lubing up your camshaft here. So that way we can slip her in. Now be very gentle. I've replaced these bearings, so they are perfect fitting. So they're just a little bit slippery. Okay.
Take your time with these.
Yes, don't go just smashing it in and wrecking your brand new bearings. Otherwise you will cry. There. I'm getting there.
Oh,
Thank you. A little bit of goop on my fingers.
spooched.
Come on. We're almost there. Take a breather. Just the tip now. It's fun to get the leverage. There. One more. There. She's in. Again, not reusing this bolt. Take that out. From this point, we need our new retainer. T40. You need your T40s that you took out. We'll throw a little bit of blue Loctite on these. Before I do that, I want to read out a part number to you. This is the Mahali one, and it's B32270, and this is a camshaft retainer. I got this because this one was in stock, and the other one was not. So I decided on this one. This is going to be to 11 foot-pounds for these guys. Just something to keep in mind. We're just gonna throw a little bit on here. And we're just gonna throw this onto here. And make sure we're going to, just checking. Yeah, that's a clean surface. Yeah, that's a clean surface. Should be. They're both brand new parts, never seen dirt, but you still should double check. So, we're just gonna do that. Use just the tip of this. Again, this is just a little bit of sealing. It's not too much because this is all covered in oil anyway. We just, I always like to throw a little bit of Loctite on these because it's a low amount, and if one of these bolts come out and hit your timing chain, well, it's time to cry in every language possible. Again, 11 foot-pounds. My fingers are too slippery. There we go. Good. Okay, there we go. Everything's at 11. If you want to, you can go over one last time. There. And now we know we're good. Next thing to do, let's get our new cam gear ready. So this is the super cool part. This is from late model engines. I'm not going to even give you a part number. It's really easy to find on their website. It's the LT1. It's for when you get an aftermarket cam. It doesn't use the phaser lock pin. This is a tuner's dream because there's no fluctuation or anything from that phaser pin moving. It locks everything in, and it locks it in at a cool 6 degrees of cam. So they give you a new bolt. They give you this, which is the new cam gear, which is insane. Look at that. That's the big phaser on the tip. Using this kit takes about 10 pounds, they're saying, off the rotational assembly. So we go ahead, we throw this off to the side. This we'll be using later. This is a new timing chain retention. So tensioner, sorry. And it is made of billet. Looks nice and shiny as well. So we've got that. We've got these two. As you can see, it says now we get to torque this to 150 foot-pounds. We're gonna get this started, but we'll have to finish it in a little bit before we put the cover on. We just want to get this on, and then we could do our timing. And then we can mess about and get this all locked in. So first things first, let's pop that sticker off, slip this on, and we'll go from there. I highly suggest, if you're doing this process and you're shopping for parts right now, get this kit. It is a bit of money for sure, but if you're gonna do it right. So what we're doing is we're putting this here and rotating our cam till it's right here. This is going to tell us that our cam is in the right position with this timing mark from the late model engines kit. This has a little dot on it for your crank. That dot needs to be straight up right here. Again, how you can tell, your piston, which is right here, will be top dead center, meaning if you try to rotate this, it won't go up or down anymore. If you see it rotate up or rotate down, you're not at the right spot. You want to be at that perfect spot. How you can tell is, like I said, straight up, and you want this to line up. In my video, I noticed that I didn't show the correction. I want to make sure that this is put through. See this timing dot? This is for TDC. That's what I showed you in the video. See how this is aimed straight down? This is where your cam gear should be faced. So make sure your cam gear is aimed straight at the crank, and the crank is aimed straight at the cam gear. This should be at TDC, and this should be ready to match that for the cam. I'm using ARP hardware on everything, so I have tons of extra of the ARP ultra high torque liquid left. I highly suggest you throw some on the bolt and the bottom side of it. Now we can go ahead, just put this bolt in right here. We'll go ahead, just give this a nice little tighten. Don't worry, it's good for 150 foot-pounds. This, don't do that to. If you're keeping this phaser for some reason, if you do that, you might snap off and then you will cry. From here, next part of the late model engines kit, I'm gonna end up throwing just a tiny bit of Loctite on here. This is the timing tensioner. Now I need to look up a little bit of stuff about this because something that seems a little off to me, which I just gotta make sure, is this doesn't have the same bracketing system for locking everything in. It just sits like this, and it sits very tight, so you can't take the timing chain actually off of it, and this just kind of holds tension to make sure the chain's not slapping around. It just kind of weirds me out because there's no actual piece to keep the tension on the timing chain, if that makes sense. I don't know how that's supposed to work. Like, so you just have this in here and it doesn't jump a tooth because it just doesn't wiggle enough to do so. Like I said, it's a little freaky. I just need to figure that out. So anyways, I'm gonna slip these bolts in and put these to, again, I think these are about 18 foot-pounds. I might need an extension on this one just so I can go ahead and make sure it doesn't come out. And I think these are, what? It's a 6 Allen key. So I'll go ahead, quickly put those in with a little bit of Loctite there. Make sure our clearances are good. Yeah, just clears all the way around. And all I'm gonna do is see, probably not gonna be able to get the head of this in there, but if I can, sweet. This is what the problem is when you start using so much lube, is your hands get all slippery. And torque zeroing, 18 foot-pounds. There we go. So those are now tightened in. So I've got this one key set up and it's pretty cool. On the top, as you can see, it has a little bit of a torque meter in here. And if I set it to the second spot, it is 75 to 150 foot-pounds. And that's why I just quickly put this on here and right like that. So next thing I could do is I can either jam the fly wheel spot over there with a wrench. And basically I can hit this with a torque wrench and just make sure this is at 150. Again, this is only for the LME kit with the hardened bolt. So this is the new timing tensioner. Basically this goes here and it's just a guide. The new sprocket is super tight fitting, so it won't allow for it to jump a tooth. This gets bolted in and replaces this. Apparently this is known to fail, and then your timing jumps a tooth, piston meets valves, and then you no longer have a motor to play with. So they've redesigned it, they've done this. This part apparently doesn't wear out. And yeah, that's the new timing piece right there. So go ahead, like I said, 18 foot-pounds, crank that in. After that's done, well, I'm putting in a new oil pump. I went with the KAT A7092. This is a high scavenging oil pump. And what you have to do is there's 2 sets of teeth here. You have to try and line them up the best you can on that sprocket. So get the first ring in first. There's 2 sets of teeth when you're looking at it. You'll see it. And it's fun. Let's see if we can get it. But you want to set it up. You could use, I bet you I could use a hook pick too for getting that on. Let's see. Come on. Oh yeah, there's the first teeth. See if we can get the second set of teeth. And right there. Perfect. That now sits right on there. Just like that. Man, that looks pretty boss right there. From here, just go ahead, take your 4 oil pump screws and just hand thread them in. Don't do too much yet, because what we're going to end up doing is aligning them. Now these do come with those rubber kind of alignment pieces here, but if we want to, just to make sure we get it 100%, we're going to end up taking off this front cover. We're going to use a couple feeler gauges and we're going to set this up a little better. You know what I just realized? It comes with, from factory, those alignments. So if your screws have those little gaskets on them, you got to pull them off. I just realized that. It replaces them, which is sweet. There. Pull this one off. And I'll just go ahead and pull this one off. And pull this one off. And that'll go in there. Go ahead and just cinch these up. I'll give you a torque spec after. So cool thing with this oil pump. It's got those little alignment gaskets in it. Now why is that important to note? Don't take these off. See how they have these little pink marks on there? This is for your warranty that you get. If you go ahead and take these bolts out and try and align it, because what some builders will do is they'll take this plate off, they'll take 2 feeler gauges and they'll put it on, and that'll help align it. If you do that and you score these, which you will, and they are moved and aren't on the exact same position, you will end up voiding your warranty, and this is a very expensive part. Just something to keep in mind. If I were you, go ahead, just tighten these up, and with those alignments that they put in here for your screws, just go ahead and put these to 18 foot-pounds and call it a day. I wouldn't be too worried about it because of the fact, like I said, I'd rather leave that cover on, not use the feeler gauges and set that, than to set it and then find out that, yeah, you opened it, and since you opened it, you have voided your warranty. And if you have a faulty pump, yeah, I don't have to even tell you, you're not getting it serviced. Now, one thing you could do if you're worried about that backing out, go ahead and you can throw a little bit of blue Loctite on each of these screws. I'll leave it up to you. Take a second to admire that before you cover it up. That is a thing of beauty. It costs an arm and a leg, but wow. The timing tensioner, the oil pump, gorgeous. These are just, well, the dowels I pulled out. These are so you can put your heads on. So if you did this, go ahead and slide your head alignment dowels back in. Get them pretty lined up and just give them a couple love taps with a rubber mallet. Should slide them right into place and align them. Now, if you're not like me and you don't have that impact gun, which is kind of sucks, but you can, on your engine stand, you put one of the flywheel bolts into the flywheel. Now, what some people will do is they'll actually bolt a piece of metal from there to here and go off of 1 or 2 of the flywheel bolts and then go off of there to get it to 150. Or you get yourself a really good point, and again, I'm not gonna probably get too much on this, but and you just would do that. Like, I managed to max out this torque wrench at 100 foot-pounds doing that method. And again, I think if you had somebody holding it, again, make sure those flex plate bolts are all the way in, and you go against the big thick part of your engine stand, you should be good. But you can't have any threads hanging out, because if you do, you could break those flex plate bolts. So either way, I just did 100 and it still didn't even turn for me. I know I'm doing good. Just make sure you do that for yourself. Next, we're gonna slide the timing cover on. Go ahead, you'll see this, pop it just out of these clips. We need to pop that out of there. So you'll notice that this is in here. Go ahead, pop, take a flat blade, and you just want to compress that clip enough that you can squeeze this out. And there, that one's coming. Oh no, that one needs to go in just a little more. Oh, come on. There we go. Nope. Come on. They make it extra fun just for us. There. Slide that out. We're gonna have to transfer this anyway over to the new cover. So go ahead, slide that through. And then this, you just have to be careful with. You don't break them, but get this panel popper piece just right here and go from there. Perfect. That one, and that sensor, be careful with it. From here, you'll see your 10 or your 8 mil, sorry. Actually, these could be 10 mils. Go ahead, pop these two out so we can slide this all out as one assembly.
Perfect. Just clean up that O-ring and we'll slip it into our new cover and we can start to tie this on. Just pass that wiring harness back through there, stick it down. What I ended up doing is throwing a little bit of RTV silicone around there just to make sure it fully seals. And then I did the same at the bottom of the sensor, not on the sensor. If you get RTV on the sensor, you're gonna hate life. And then all you do is you slide it back through, wiggle it, and just be careful not to damage that O-ring. And we'll just see if we can squeeze it in. Yep, there it goes. And then this looks like it factory wanted to go down and on there. And I bet you this cover doesn't even want that on here anymore. Look at that, it doesn't. So I have to take one of the bolts from here. Let's see, can I put this cover back on there? This cover wants to sit here, that one sits here. So I'm supposed to have a screw for that sensor. I wonder which one it wants me to use. On here, go ahead, sink these back in here. Just pinch and pinch. Make sure that sensor's clean. Looks beautiful, don't it? Perfect. Now, we need our inch pounds, and like all the other 10 bolts, just make sure you get in here and tighten this. Down to, I think I accidentally put this on off. Let's see. Should be about 84 inch pounds. Let's see if we can get it. That's tight enough. I ain't messing around with that. All right. This one's a little longer, so I'll do more with that. Again, I use blue Loctite. I cinched that down. I would say don't go down that much. That screw is a lot shorter than these ones. Go ahead, and these ones should 100% be 84 inch pounds. Like I said, that sensor bolt, I just don't want to start cranking it out and stripping out the case, because that would really suck. Let's see this. It'd be neat if they just said, you know, let's include it. Since it is a unique cover, there, let's see. There we go. Not going to make you suffer through that. Just tighten these two down. We've already got that clipped up, and this will clip in the oil pan. We're good to go. Go ahead, check everything. Yep, everything looks good down here. Make sure this is good. All the way up and in here. Just want to make sure this gasket's sitting how it should. If you wanted to, you could do a very light coat of RTV. You shouldn't need to. This is just going to have a little bit of stuff in there, and it should seal perfectly fine. Anyways, I'm just going around doing my last search to make sure everything is good in here, and it looks good. Yeah, everything looks fine. Is that sitting? Yeah, that's sitting. Perfect. Okay, now that we've made sure everything's sitting here fine, gaskets are fine, this can just slide right on here to the longest bolts. The long bolt goes in here, next long bolt goes in here. No plastic or rubber jackets. The alignment that they give you with the other ones. Go ahead and just put these in. And again, when we go to do these, I'm pretty sure you know the torque already on these just from the heads by now. Since it's a 13 mil, it's 100% going to be 18 foot-pounds. If you're doing this with the oil pan still in the car, maybe you're just installing this cover only, you'll have to, before you install this, cut the extra. Since I'm doing the oil pan after I do this cover, I can cut it because I'm going to seal it afterwards. But like I said, if you're doing this and you're just doing the cover, cut this when it's out before you put it in. After you've cut those two little tagged pieces off, then you'd run along the bottom here a full RTV strip, or I should say of silicone, so when you put it on, it's going to seal on that oil pan when you stick it and flip it. Because you'll come on an angle, you'll stick it, flip onto the dowels, and the RTV will seal. You can use a rubber gasket on here as well as RTV if you so wish. You don't have to though. You can actually just RTV the whole bottom and just X-nay that extra rubber gasket. And just make sure you add a little bit more RTV where it mates with the block and the oil pan at that trifecta. It's like a T. It goes like this, or an L or a T. Just make sure you put a little bit more there so that way it seals for sure. Because the last thing you want is a drip on that seam. Anyways, now that we've gone ahead and explained all that, let's go ahead and put this on. 18 foot-pounds. Again, just as you're used to, we're going to start pretty central with this one. Okay. Do one up. Oh, I went to 20 foot-pounds, so but there we go. And then, you know what? I'm just going to do these two last bottom ones first. There we go. And this one. There we go. And these two. And this one. Perfect. If you want, do one more pass just to make sure. There we go. Timing cover's on. The last piece, which I'll leave until the very end and we have the heads on and all other fun stuff, is to do the crank. Because if we can actually add a little compression to the motor when you go to put that crank bolt on, that's what does it. But at least now you can see it. Look how beautiful the new LME timing cover looks. The only thing I would change about this entire setup is if LME would just include that one little screw. I mean, it's not very hard. Then nobody buys the wrong screw and pops it through the cover by accident. And then they don't have to go to the auto parts store and pick up one screw. I mean, you're paying quite a bit for this cover. It's not like you're paying peanuts for it. I think it's over $1,000 Canadian. Anyways, that's for the cover. Let's get to putting the lifters in. This is the part number for the lifters. 124-99225, and yeah, that's all I have on this. So these are your buckets, set of 4 for each, and it doesn't even give me a part number. Just look up lifter buckets, I guess. And this is because we are deleting the MDS or AFM or whatever they're calling DOD on this vehicle. So just open these up. You can just kind of spread them out, but we're gonna have to preload them anyway. So I'm just gonna put this up here in the valley tray. Just for now, go ahead, take your lifters out and just slide them into here. This particular lifter, it's pretty sweet. They come pre-oiled, so you don't have to do anything but slip them in. They've already been soaking in oil, which is perfect because will help reduce lifter rattle when you first start putting them in. Grab and preload them. Again, these ones are not the cheapest lifter, but man, they work great. Again, if you're worried about anything, maybe not enough oil or something, go ahead and use a little bit of assembly lube and lube up just the roller. So put a little bit of assembly lube on the roller, because in the end, it's fine to do so. Once we do that, here we go. Lifter buckets installed. All we do, part number, I always like to put part number up. That usually means that I did something right. So that could just go in there. But like I said, what I might do is just use a little bit of assembly lube and go ahead and slide it in. Oh, and you can also see how there's a groove here? Haha, there's a groove right here. That's how you know it's going in the right way. You'll need the screws from your factory lifter buckets. So we already did the roller a little bit, or you can throw a little bit of roller just like that. I'm going to show you another thing to do though. Go like this, move it all the way down onto here. Just so we have a little bit more for these to go in. So these are into here, these are into here, perfect. Go ahead and just line these up and they should slide in. There, there, boom, just like that. Put your factory screws back in here. I'll give you the torque spec in a second. Chances are it's going to be 84 inch-pounds, but I'll tell you in one sec. Go ahead, bring them to 85 inch-pounds. There. Put a little bit of blue Loctite on them. There we go. Again, you have to, there is an art to it just for lining these up. You just have to sink them in. So when you're putting them in, don't get disgruntled and go patiently. Don't just start ramming them in there. Kind of wiggle them around, move them. Yeah, I have to bring them in and out a little bit, and the lube should help lube up the holes. And yeah, there you go. That's the short block. From here, it's time to put heads on. The head gaskets we're going to be using are Mahali 55332. Again, I believe they are sold in sets. I can't remember. I ordered them quite a while ago. And if you pull them out, you can't really mess them up. It'll say which side is front. See how it says front? And if we flip it over, I think it'll probably say front over here. See, front is to your timing cover. So all we're gonna do is put these on here for a sec and make sure everything lines up. It should just sit right on your dowels. And again, double check everything lines up. If it doesn't line up, then it's a good hint that you have the wrong gasket. And if it does line up, well, then it's another day in paradise and we can continue on. So far, that's looking like it's lining up, which is good. I'm gonna just double check this next gasket here. And again, front goes to front, but you just have to, yeah, if you flip it, then it'll go to front. So they're a double-sided gasket. That's the best way to put it. It's the same thing, just make sure you have it on the right side or flipped to the right side. Best way to do it, or say it. Of course, this one wants to be fun to open. Ask any engine builder, any real engine builder, if they've put their head gasket on backwards before. And the real ones will tell you yes. Or the paranoid ones that just have done it always right. Or so they'll have you think, will tell you they haven't never done it wrong. Anyways, like I said, just if it doesn't say front, flip the gasket over and it will say front. If you want to get these ARP bolts, 2343710. Again, it'll come with all these long bolts. One will be shorter than the rest. This bolt is not for this side, but this position on this side. So on the dowel pin, on this dowel pin on this side, that is where the short bolt goes. Do not forget that. Next thing you cannot forget are these washers. Put these bolts down for a sec. You'll notice that one side has a chamfered head, or right here. See how this side's flat? No. And then this one's got chamfered. The bolt head, so it'll slide onto the bolt like this. The head of the bolt should be resting on the chamfer. Remember that. So what I'm going to tell you to do, grab one of these bolts, the long ones, slide the cover off, and then slide this on. If you want, go ahead and just slide that back on. Go ahead and do this to all your bolts. You'll thank me later because then you won't forget the washers. Once you've gone ahead and done that, you're going to take this and you're going to have this goop that's in here. And what you're going to do is just apply a little bit like this to all the bolt threads. This is a ultra torque lubricant. We want it on the threads. It's like a Loctite almost. I guess that's the best way to put it. And just get as much of it on the threads as you can. Don't worry about putting too much, because what we're going to do is after we get it on here, we can move it around. It's just getting it out of the package and onto the threads. It's a lot. Just like that. And then the other thing they ask you to do, again, just to be thorough, take a little bit, use a rag if you want. I'm going to put a little bit on the underside of the bolt so as it spins on the washer. Helps with heat too. So, see how we've got that on the tips now? Go ahead and do that to the under sides of this as well. On there. Figure I would show you what the bottom side of the valves, now that they're all cleaned up, look like before I slide this on. All right, so when putting these on, they're actually interchangeable unless your machinist tells you otherwise and tells you which head to put on which. In that case, follow what they say. But let's see if we can get this on here. All right, that's on, that's on. We want to make sure we have a nice, yep, that's sealed on the gasket. And that's sealed on the gasket. Grab one of your long bolts. Slide it in there. And we'll do another one. And again, no short one on this side. There is a torque sequence. I will show you afterwards. But what we're going to do first is actually just snug it up. I'm going to just put in a couple threads here. There. And then we'll do a couple threads here. Again, it should not be choppy. You should be able to put that in. It should be just fine. If you have any problems whatsoever, stop immediately. If you can, double check your washers as you put them in. Last thing you want to do is put these in and not have the washer on the right way, because then you won't get warranty from ARP. Which would be bad. You're spending so much on these bolts. I suggest doing one head at a time. Some people just like to speed put them in. I wouldn't. Take your time. We're gonna have a couple different measurements. First one is a torque spec. Then after that, we do angle measurements. Now these bolts, ARP kind of gives you a cheater thing and says that they should be around 115 by the time you're done. Again, I'll leave it up to you. You can go ahead and just go with that, or actually do the angle measurements like you should. Again, these should be buttery smooth going in. And yes, there will get more friction as you put them in. So, but make sure you get those first couple threads in, because if you're binding on the first few threads, that's not good. There we go. Just gonna make sure again. Like I said, you should just go right in like that for the first few threads. I do expect for it to get a little more. These are big bolts. You just don't want to strip the aluminum block. That is exactly why you hand put them in for the first few threads. Okay, now that you've got that, go ahead and just cinch them down. I suggest to use a ratchet, not an impact, because you don't want to actually put any torque on these yet. When we get to that, I'll show you the torque sequence. Another quick note, when you're cinching them down, you can see, should be able to do this up here on the top of the ratchet. You should see how I'm putting no pressure, just letting the weight of the ratchet turn the bolt. If you're having to go ham on these, you're stripping, just so you know. Don't do that. And again, we're just cinching them down. You don't want to be putting any pressure on these bolts yet until we start doing the torque spec. Now what I will tell you to do is just sink them down, just like that. Okay, now that we're cinched down, it's a 9/16 for the ARPs. What I love is they don't have that weird Allen key bolt, which is an off size when you use the ARP bolts. They all are the 9/16. Now that we've got that, I'm gonna grab my torque wrench. I'm gonna go over this from my view. 59 foot-pounds is our first pass. What you're gonna do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. After we do that first pass, we're gonna do this again, but this time with angle measurements. We're gonna go on here and we're gonna go to do a 90 degree. Then we're gonna go down here, 90, and so on and so forth, same pass. And then we're gonna do one more pass at 60 degree. Very important. You know that mini bolt? On the last pass, you only do a 40 degree turn, not a 90 degree turn. This is very important. Don't want you stripping it out. This right here is for the people that don't have a snap-on torque wrench like I do. What this allows you to do, put this on your torque wrench. The extension that's going down there goes onto here. What you do is after you do that, I don't know if I'm going to be able to turn it to show you. Yeah, see this? See how I'm turning it and it's moving? Look, we'd be at 90 right there. Now, what does that allow you to do? Well, if you hold on to this and you ratchet it, and if you're in a tight spot and you can only get to 30, you can actually hold this, ratchet it back without moving that bolt, and then use it again, let it ratchet forward to 60, hold it, go back, and then let go, and then 90. See what I'm doing? Just in case you're, for some reason, your engine's still in your engine bay. From there, you can... Let's zero this out. Perfect. 59. Again, going here first. Oh, it's gonna be big. Oh, here we go. Oh. also have to count for a little bit is this. All right. Almost there. Whew, that was 56.4. As you can see, these head bolts take a lot. There we go. I hit it. There. Not to mention it makes you sweat. There we go. Always pushing towards the floor, by the way. That way if it slips for some reason, it doesn't punch you in the face. There. Oh. Again, over here. There we go. It's a good workout. Again, I'm just using this as a supporting hand. This is my pushing hand. Just because the last thing I want is this to slip. There. Last bolt of this pass. There. I'll tell you this isn't as satisfying. When you have the clicky torque wrenches, it goes, because when you're doing those big measurements, it's like click, click. It feels pretty darn good. Anyways, that was our first 59 foot-pounds on all those. So with the snap on, you have to hit angle. And when you hit it, you set it to 90 degree. And then we put it right here. And after we've done that, now we do a 90 degree turn on it. One, it's telling me now. Now, the good news is like I said, snap on, I can go back up and continue. Oh, that's 80 and 90 right there. Oh, that's our first one. Perfect. Now we hit angle again. That way it zeros. And again, we do our angle. Perfect. And before we even do this, yeah, wait for it to reset. There. Oh. And then we wait for it to reset. And we go. There. Whew. Now we come over here. And again. There we go. Whew. And again. Wait for it to reset. Oh, 3 degree, really? There we go. Let's try that again over here. Oh, that was 83. Thought it'd be close. There we go. And here. Wait for it to reset. There. And last side. You're gonna get a good workout. There. And then now this side. Okay. Wait for it to reset. Again, if you can do it all in one stretch, it's obviously better. And there. Oh. Because the ARP stuff rates it to 115, we are gonna set a big torque wrench to 115, and I'm not gonna use my snap-on one. What I did is I started to fill them, and I noticed that some of them were going past or pretty darn close to 115. So on the final pass, rather than doing the 60, I'm actually gonna set this to 115. So that's there, there, and we're gonna have our clicky torque wrench. I'm gonna set this. What we're gonna do is actually set these and get them to 115. So let's see. There, that's 115. That's already at 115. That's 115. 115. 115. 115. 115. 115. If you want, do one more pass just to make sure. Just remember, this short bolt, driver's side of the motor, and it goes in the top dowel right here. And again, to do what we just did. slip all these bad boys in. You can get a couple turns on them if you want. Actually, definitely get the double turns on. Make sure that we're not stripping. And go ahead and quickly tie them in so they're snug. And then just do what we just did. Do the first pass to 59 foot-pounds, then do your 90, and then finish it off with torquing it to 115. And I would highly suggest using, since you're replacing these bolts anyway, with ARP hardware. A little bit more money, a lot more assurance. Part number is right there. Don't know if it'll focus in for you. PR7850343-16 chromoly push rods. What you should do with these is go ahead, open up this bag, grab these, and if you want, just apply a little bit of lube. Make sure your lube bottle's open. Add a little lube. Just, yeah. Just a little something, something. These already have a little something, something on them. They should be fine. Just toss them in. Again, we're just adding this. So when it just first starts up, it's got a little something to slide on. No metal wear. Now, if you were like me and you did the CHE trunnion bushings, I'll do a video, or I did a video on that, and I will put that in after this. And that'll show you how to do the same thing. Just get those trunnion bushings in from CHE. They're really good. Gets rid of the needle bearings in the rockers. Because to do all this work and then have one of those needle bearings fail and all those needle bearings go inside your motor, that would suck so bad. Hands are getting slippery enough. Might not have to add too much more lube to these. Again, the oil, especially with this new high scavenging oil pump, should get through pretty darn quick up to these. Okay, my fingers are getting so lubed up I can almost not grab them. Another thing you can do if you have engine oil is simply just dump engine oil into this bag that's sealed up so nicely. And all you do is you just fill it with a bit of oil and mash them up, if you so wish to do it that way. Anyways, do the same to the other side. You're going to need a 7/8 socket and a 9/16. All it does, you see the opening right here? It just sits right on there. Now, how you know which side to push out on? See how this one has two flat spots and this one does not? Well, that's pretty easy. This is so this can sit on right here, and then where it doesn't have it, this pushes it in. Basically what we're doing is pushing this socket into that socket, in theory. So, what you want to do is, so I can show you better, I'm going to hold this against here. We're going to center this. Has to be centered. And then with my pinky finger, actually I might have to do this, I'm going to line this up so it sits just like this. And then we're going to put a little bit of pressure on it, just like that. It should straighten out. We might have to move this just a little bit. We make sure, we'll actually want that down there, just like that. Okay, now that we've got that, we start to put pressure on it. A little pop. That's fine. And we start to go up. Again, I'm using a small vise. Since I'm using a small vise, it's a little bit more fun. If you're using a bigger vise, it goes by a little quicker. But once it gets started, see that? I hope. See if I can put you on a better angle. I want to zoom in. See how it's slipping? Perfect. Should do that. When she goes, it'll pop just like that. Perfect.
Now we go out, move it like this. There's our bearing. Yay, our bearing is still in one piece. If this slips out, this little collar slips out, all those little needle bearings will go everywhere in the room. So we just do that and put this off to the side. Go ahead and do that with all the other ones. I slid the casing open so you could see. See these little guys? That's just one bearing. So you can see if this little casing fails and these little guys start going all over your motor, you can imagine the damage they'll do if they get into your oiling system or they get into other rockers, everything. So this is why we're going to bushings. Open socket on here. This side doesn't matter. I only like the open socket here because it kind of sits nice on that rounded piece. And then we just make sure this kind of stays squared up and we tighten this up ever so slowly. And whatever you do, always double inspect before pressing because you don't want to damage it. So we can see that's there. I can see that's lined up down there. This is right on the center. Now that we know that we're all lined up, we can now go here, start pressing. Always does that one scary pop. And then we just start squishing. This vise, if it was mounted, would be a little bit better, but this is my portable vise. Just like that. Now it's smooth as butter. And then just watch for those little bearings, pick it up, and again continue. Time for reassembly. You would go ahead. This is some Lucas assembly lube. I prefer it. If you want, you can use engine motor oil. Just go ahead and put some in a little cup like so. From here, make sure these are absolutely clean. The next thing I would suggest you do is run your finger along the edge. If you feel any burrs or anything, you need some light grit sandpaper, or my favorite, which is the yellow with the green Scotch-Brite pads. You go ahead and you can get in here and you can scrub these, and that'll usually clean up any sort of burrs or contaminants in here. But inspect them, wipe them, and then if you just disassemble these, make sure you clean your hands. Make sure they're sparkling. You don't want anything to go wrong while assembling this. Before we use this piece, put it off to the side. What we're going to do is take our first trunnion, which is right here. Take some lube. Put it on your fingers, move it all the way around. I like to do both sides at once. If you're working on a clean surface, it's not a big deal. If you're worried about getting contaminants, don't do this because it'll pick up everything on your pad. All right, next thing you need to do, I like to aim the logo aiming at me. From there, go ahead, pull out one of the bushings. Cover it on both sides. If you cover it on both sides, even though we've already got the inside covered, we now know it's going to take care of everything. Slide it on. Here you go. Make sure it's all clean. Feel for any burrs with your finger. If anything catches or feels like grit on your finger, go grab a Scotch-Brite pad. That's that yellow pad with the green on the inside, and you just want to rub on the inside of here and get rid of it so this is nice and silky smooth. Now, we'll put this off to the side. If you want, take some assembly lube, like so, put it into this cup, just like that. Now we have a good surface. If you didn't before, go and clean your hands before touching this stuff after you've cleaned it, because if there's any grits or anything on your fingers from removing the other stuff or even from walking around the house, it could affect the quality and the end result. So now that we've got this, I'm just gonna actually move it off to the side. We're gonna grab the trunnion, just like so. Grab a little bit of assembly lube, put it around both edges. Since I know my work area is clean, I'm not worried about getting any lube on there. Clean this just a little bit.
grab this, a little more lube, little meaning lot, and then rub some on the inside, slip it on. Look at that. Now that we've got that there, we need one of our snap rings. Let's see if I can do it with this hand so that way I can properly show you. Basically, I've got right angle one so I can try and show you. Separate it like that. Open. Just like that. I might move that over just a little bit just because I'm a little crazy that way. I like to have everything right there. Straight. Because if you look on there, there's a little E. You don't have to do that, by the way. It's just craziness. Anyways, we go over here. Next thing to do, since we've already cleaned this, slide this piece on. There we go. Now that that's gone through, we go ahead, we use another bushing. Just make sure you go ahead, again, covering it in lots and lots of lube. We already lubed the trunnion side, but you can never do too much of this, especially since we're putting this into a fresh motor. Okay, that's down. And again, there we go. There we go. Pretty close. There we go. And that has been converted now to a bushing. It's not hard, it's just tedious. Make sure you put this somewhere, it's covered in lube and stuff, so you don't want it to pick up anything. So I would put it in either a Ziploc bag or in a contained area, so that way it doesn't pick up any grits or anything like that, and or just bolt it right back into the vehicle. Trunnion, a little bit of blue Loctite if you so wish. Push these all the way in. Make sure that they're pushed down and into the lifter. After you do that, make sure that I actually put this in the right way and sink the ball into the tip. The most important is making sure this is on there and the ball is in the tip. From there, you don't have to do that. You just do it by fingers first just to make sure we don't strip, because that would not be good for how far you've come already. I will just get this bolt not just kind of cinched down. Again, you could use an extension and just do that. By the way, set your mini torque wrench here to 106 inch-pounds. Once you've done that, all you do is, now that we're getting close, perfect. I want to make sure that's lined up there. This is on there. And we just go down and tighten this. There we go. That's all there's to it. Making sure, yep, that's on there. This will rock on there. We're all good to go. Copy that to the rest of these. Don't want to bore you. As you can see, they're all centered on here. You can also take an inspection light and just make sure your push rods are inside. Pretty easy with these ones because they have very deep pockets. So you should be able to see that and feel that they're like in the pocket. As long as they're in the pocket, you're doing good. Now that we've got that all cleaned up, I've done it to both sides, I guess we might as well work on the valley tray. Now, you can use your factory valley tray if you've got it, and then what you would do is you would put in little plugs in here. There's a few different ways. There's tap-in plugs, and then there is machinists that will actually just tap and thread in. Another way of doing it is Langenfelter makes a rivet in, so you have to buy their rivet gun, and you would also buy their rivets, and you can squish them in and they will go in there. The way I decided to go is the ICT valley tray. What it does is rather than using plugs or rivets, we'll bring this forward, it has gaskets. You put all these gaskets in and it allows us to just simply bolt this plate on and it seals it away. It's really clean looking. It's a nice solid piece of billet and it's really not that expensive. I think it was 100 and something bucks Canadian. So definitely worth it. I also went for, because we're dealing with a Gen 5, I got this sensor. So what we're gonna have to do, or this extra port, which is for our oil pressure sensor, we're gonna have to drill a hole, and it tells us that I believe it's a 1/4 inch. I will double check that right now. They've actually already got the spot for us over here. This is where we have to drill it in. This sensor will sit just above it. So what we'll probably have to do is get a pilot drill bit or even a tap, and we'll quickly just tap on this. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but yes, you put it on here. A punch, there we go. We'll take a punch, put it right here in the center, give it a small ding so that way our drill bit can't wander, and we'll drill probably a 1/4 inch hole that's going to go right through here. So that way, if we come over to the block side, see, there's our 1/4 inch hole. That has to pass through for our oil pressure sensor. Part number for the ICT billet plate is, apparently it's X003C3 4LX5. And then this one, which is the oil pressure adapter, X003C3CB3H. So again, just make sure this lines up on here. I want to try and get as central as possible. Hold it there. And just like that. And again, this is just to make sure your drill bit doesn't wander. Pilot drill bit was successful. Now, bigger drill bit. And there it is. What we'll do is we'll clean up the edge, just a little bit like that, and then we'll flip this. And before we flip this, we're gonna put this in over a box and get rid of all these shavings. We're gonna make sure this is cleaned up real good because you do not want any of these shavings inside your motor. Very fine file. Go in here and just clean up any rough edges. You shouldn't have too much to clean up. And yeah, like I said, you're just going like this. Kind of puts a bit of a chafer or camphor or whatever you want to call it on it. Some people use a step bit, but I like to use a file. Do that to both sides, and then again, like I said, make sure whatever you do, you blast this with air or you get out a cloth and clean this up. You need to make sure all of those files are not going into your motor. Otherwise, it could plug up your oiling system. It could plug up your brand new motor and make you cry, which it definitely will. So there we go. Now I'm going to go through even with this file. And the other thing you can use is, like I said, just a oily paper towel. And that usually cleans this up too. Just make sure you don't give yourself any metal splinters. Inspect. Shoot this with brake clean, just like we did to the oil pan earlier. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and we can start to line up our gasket. Our gasket, we just have to figure out which way she goes. And it looks like we've got one big whoop-de-loop that goes there. I have to line up the whoop-de-loops, right? Oh, I think I found it. You gotta find, it's always easiest to do the corners first. So do the corners and then do the long stretches. This comes over here, just like so. Don't think I really have to tell you what to do with the little O-rings, but we'll talk about it anyway. Just get this all lined up. And right there. Ta-da. So look for this L. That was the easiest way to do it. Make sure once again, inspecting for any foreign materials. Nope, we're looking good. Yeah, no, that was nothing. Perfect. Okay, now we need the little gaskets. Now they gave us these big gaskets. These are for our fuel piece. I'm gonna put these up on the oil pan for a second, just because we don't need those right now. We need to open this a little more. Take these little O-rings and just start popping them in, just so they don't drop inside your motor, because yeah, once we get this and we tie this down, it's going to seal these up real nice like. The light is shining off these and I keep thinking, hey, is that something that I need to be worried about? No, it's just the light. Again, light reflect. And there we go. Like I said, make sure this is all sitting proper. Do one more look over the entire cover and just go flip this onto your valley tray. And then I'll give you the torque spec for all the bolts. From this point, just a little bit of blue Loctite. We're going to do every one of these holes except for these two, because that's where our oil pressure sensor will go. And the two where the fuel pump that sits on the valley tray is going to go. So don't do those, just do these ones for right now, and then we'll set them all, go from there. Can you guess the torque pattern? Inside, outside. So work your way out from being inside. Always switching. So these two, then these two, then those two, and then we'll leave those two and then just do this one. And then leave these two till we put our oil pressure sensor piece on there, which we'll do in one sec. Next, take this O-ring, slide it in around here, just for safekeeping. Next, slip the O-ring in on here. Do not put any blue Loctite on these screws. Simply put these just like so. Next thing, hand thread these on, just like that. Now that we've gone ahead and done that, just like this, again, not doing anything more than hand tight. I've got this backwards right now, by the way. I just seen that. But either way, doesn't matter. Hand tighten, leave it like that. Let's go grab our oil pressure sensor adapter. Oil pressure sensor adapter, go like this. Need to make sure it aims the right way, which is this way. Ta-da! Needs to aim outward. So we just aim it like so. It aims like that, just over our newly made hole. We throw a little bit of Loctite on here. Now that we've got all our Loctite set and our screws set, we can set everything but the fuel pump one down. We might even take the fuel pump one right off for right now. The reason why we have it there is so that way we know it's going to line up later. Because if we go and crank these all down and those fuel pump ones are not in there, you might not be able to thread them in later, which means you have to do that. I would suggest not installing this until the very end, once your motor is in the vehicle. So we're going to 18 foot-pounds. Just did that one. My battery died. Go me. And then we're going to go ahead and do this one in the center too. And right there. This one is 5. So is this one. The last two up on the one tray there are going to be, on the oil pressure sensor, a 6. Oh, don't want to go up. Just want to do this. There. Tell you what, I'm breathing heavy on this one. Just because we're using these screws, and usually I would think this was a lower torque spec, but no, apparently not. There we go. And now we come over here. I guess it does have to make sure it seals all those O-rings in. I think it's also because I'm using Allen keys. And usually when I'm using Allen keys, I breathe a little bit deeper when it's chamfered head. Chamfered head? I don't know what they would say. There we go. And then we're not going to do these two. We're going to leave those. So we're just going to come over here, do this last bottom one, and then we'll do those last two up there. There we go. And pull this off. Put on this one. I think what we're going to do though, leave that one to last, or well, we could just get it started and then we'll pull this out of here. I just want to make sure they're both going in balanced. Okay, get this one now. There we go. And last but not least, this one. There we go. 18 foot-pounds. Look at that. Like I said, this I just put in here. This is going to be for all our fueling. And this is going to stay just like this as well. I'm probably going to flip this around just in case so I don't forget. Just like we did before. Go ahead, start at one side and start applying gasket maker. And again, don't go crazy like I did last time. We will smear this out. We just want to get it started. And then what you do is take a cloth and after we get that done, just like that, we'll smear it around with the cloth. If you use the same timing cover, you need to cut the extra off here. I will leave this up to you. They do give you a gasket for the front end. Make sure this is cut nice and smooth. I try to make sure it's smooth to the body or smooth to the pan. You can get this flat and always away from the motor so you're not putting it into the motor. If you do a sawing motion, there. Okay, so now that we've done that, come over here. See right here? Feel for any divot. If so, take your X-Acto, do the same thing, clean this up. We're gonna actually add another bit right here. And the reason why is we wanna make sure this part, this part, this part, and this part mate 100%. I can feel these are already flush and in line, but still right here, we want to make sure that mates 100%. So I like to add just a tiny bit more RTV on the corners there. Like I said, go ahead if you'd like and just put a little bit more right there, right here, just to make sure, because anything I know is if this leaks, we'll hate life. Yeah, that should be it. There, smooth it over. If you haven't yet, go ahead, take this, sink it down. Once it's sunk onto the pump, go like this, do the pull test, make sure it's on. I deleted that brown clip that was on here. I could not find the place where it clipped onto. Took me a couple minutes, and yeah, I looked everywhere. So I just ended up removing it. Next thing to do is navigate this big, heavy tray on. Just like so. There. Perfect. Oh. Next thing to do, take all your bolts. These bolts are all the same size except for the two that go on the rear main. The two on the rear main, these big ones up here, they are a different size. Holy smokes, that was a lot. Anyways. I think it's pretty cool. The one thing is that GM puts those little rubber gaskets on there to help line the bolt up in the hole. When you bring it down, it kind of moves everything around. So like I said, if you want, just hand thread these guys in. These two little guys. So, just like we're used to, start in the middle. Just don't forget which bolt you start on. Yeah, this should be good. And you want to start at the innermost bolt and go to 18 foot-pounds. There we go. There we go. Again, inside to outside. Most importantly though, I'll show you this after too. Perfect. Do not do this torque amount on those two little 10 mils that we put in, or I should say the two long but little 10 mils. Because if you do 18 foot-pounds, you're for sure snapping the head off of those. And now we're just gonna actually just cinch up the whole front. Might as well, right? There we go. That one had a long way to go. After this, you're going to need your inch-pounds torque wrench, and we're going to do the rear ones to 106 inch-pounds. Perfect. $106. Just like that. Just bringing them in equally. And now go ahead. There we go. There we go. Done. A little bit of assembly lube just on here so we don't get our gasket.
Let's go ahead and install a harmonic balancer. This right here, I believe is, what is this? This is the M16? Yeah, M16 threaded bolt. So this just goes in. I would make sure you put it in at least a few threads. There. Now that we know we've got that in at least a few threads, there is a keyway right here. The keyway lines up with this keyway. I almost said kiwi. And then just slide it on the keyway just like that. Next thing to do, take this guy. One thing you can do if you're worried is lubricate the threads using silicone lubricant, especially if this is your first time using your new setup here. That'll help take care of that. Next thing we need to do is we need to hold this. Usually takes about an 8 mil. And then what we do is we can turn this. And as we turn this, it'll put our pulley in.
but we have to make sure we're holding this. And we got to make sure this stays tight. I don't have this wrench size, otherwise I would tell you what wrench size it is. But yeah, like I said, just keep going until it bottoms out. See how close I am here? See how it doesn't go completely flush? That means we're all the way in. Don't try to make it flush. Just get it in this much. Now that I've got this seated, and how you can tell if it's seated, if you take a light and shine it in behind, look all the way around, especially from down here. You shouldn't see any chrome on the edge of the snout. And like I said, all you do is, after you tighten this in, go ahead and pull it out. I do highly recommend though, that you use some silicone spray and shoot the threads. It'll just keep everything lubricated when going in and out, so that way you don't strip any of your threads on your harmonic balancer installer. And again, you can get these kits for cheap. I think I got this one for 30 bucks from Princess Auto. Nice and cheap. Anyways, now that we've got that, I think that's about all I'm going to be showing in this engine assembly. Because right now, I'm not going to do the flywheel. And the flywheel you would install on the way out. If you want, I can definitely give you some torque specs on that. And if you're interested in that, now that we've got it there, see that bolt? This would be considered a flanged head bolt. If yours is separate, where it has a bolt and a washer, then what you would do is, let's start off with the flanged head, which is that one. Only use a brand new bolt. Do not risk snapping that bolt or stripping the threads or anything. Like I said, brand new bolt only. If you get one that has a flanged head, which is not got a washer on it, you will do a first pass of 89 foot-pounds, then loosen it 360 degrees. Then on the third pass, you will tighten it to 59 foot-pounds. Then on a final pass, a 125 degree turn. So just like you did your heads, do your degrees. All right, if you have the one that has the washer, you will do 89 foot-pounds. Then second pass is to loosen 360, just like the other one. Then third pass is to bring it to 59 foot-pounds, just like the other one, but where it changes. The final pass, rather than 125 degrees, will be 200 degrees. Very important. All right, this is where I'm actually going to be ending mine, because I'm not putting my flex plate on until I install the engine and the motor, because I have to take off the engine stand, which means I have to put it on the hoist. So if you want, what I will quickly do is the flywheel bolts. When you go to do them, what you want to do is kind of do the star pattern. So make sure that you kind of go on a star pattern, just like you tighten your tire on your car. And first pass, 11 foot-pounds. Second pass, 22 foot-pounds. And then finish them off with 45 degree turn on every single one of them. That's it. You might have to lock up your crank so you can get those down to torque. Let's go ahead and quickly tell you the valve covers. Again, I'm not putting my new valve covers on yet because my valve covers, well, they're brand new and I just don't want any chance of scraping them up on the way in. Valve covers are 89 inch-pounds, and just like we did with the heads, inside to outside. So do your inside ones first, then your outsides. If you're wondering about those gaskets, let's go ahead and quickly tell you the gasket actually. So this should be my valve cover gasket. This is 126197-787. That should be your valve cover. These are for the water pump. So this is all for drive assembly. Sure, why not? Let's give it to you. 2512066. You'll need 2 of those. Same with the valve covers. I believe it's the same part number. It's, yeah, 126-19787. And again, this one should be the exact same one as well, 12512066. Let's make sure, yeah, both the same. And exhaust gaskets for your headers. This is Mahali, so it's MS19936. I hope this helped you assemble your motor. I gotta thank
Davenport Motorsports. They're the ones who helped me out with getting all these parts. For the most part, I did get some other stuff off Amazon, like ICT's billet plate here, and this piece, and wait till you see what else I have coming. Also Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a great place for gaskets. Put all the gaskets in your cart and order them in. There's always an option available from what I found anyway for these LT motors. So that's about it. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you when we put it in there.